Hello, Boulder Bookstore. My name is Mike Ayers, and I am the author of the recent book, One Last Song, Conversations on Life, Death, and Music. It came out last October on Abrams Books. And I'm so excited to be here and do an author Q&A and tell you all about it. Let's get started. I had this idea several years ago. I was coming back from a show in New York City. I was on the train late at night and I was listening to a song that I have listened to for decades at this point, and I just started thinking about how that song never gets old to me. I love it so much, and I would probably hear it up until my last moments on earth. And that sparked something for me right then. And I thought it would be a great book idea to have other musicians that think about music and how it works in our life every day, answer that question. I thought the answers would be really unique, and they ended up being really unique. And this is what the book is all about. Whose song surprised you the most? This is a great question. A lot of the songs were very surprising. A lot of the songs I had never even heard of, so it was a good education on that part. But I would say the most surprising song was from Lauren Mayberry of Churches. She picked the song Firework by Katy Perry. She opens up her chapter by talking about whether she'd pick a sad song or a happy song, and it ended up, this song just brought back so many good memories, and it also was a blueprint for her and her band's work and how they really wanted to approach their own music. And I thought that was really it was really poignant. It doesn't have to be a sad moment when we die, and she certainly picked up on that. She picked up on something that she wanted to have a happy memory around, and something a bit euphoric. And that's what that Katy Perry song is. What do you think a person's song choice says about them? Another great question. I think it says a lot about them. A common theme that was in the book throughout the chapters is coming of age. A lot of the musicians picked songs that they discovered in their late teens or early 20s, and that's when a lot of us are finding ourselves. We're becoming who we are as adults. We're transitioning out of childhood, and they gravitate towards that, and those feelings, that song, just sometimes it never leaves us. And that was one of the common threads that I didn't expect when I started it, but after it was over, it became really apparent that that's one thing that a lot of people latch onto. What's the last song you would want to hear? And has this song changed? This song has not changed. I just referenced that this book was inspired by me thinking about this one night on the way home from a show in New York City. And that song is Terrapin Station by the Grateful Dead. I've loved them for forever, it feels like at this point. I still listen to them constantly these days, and that song changed over the band's life. The early versions you would hear always felt more poppy. By the time the band was winding down in the 90s, the versions felt really, really weathered and broken, and I don't know, I just always thought that was there was just something beautiful about that song's transformation in its life. It kind of had its own life course in my mind, and I hear something new every single time I listen to it. I think that would be a great way to exit. Can you read us a short passage from your book? Yes, I would love to. I was going to read the first artist entry. It's from Colin Malloy, who is the lead singer and principal songwriter from the Decemberists. The last song that he chose was Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. And his entry goes like this. Van Morrison was Brown Eyed Girl to me. It was my parents. It was hippie music. It was the baby boomers. I was into new wave and punk rock and stuff. But for my last song, I think it would be Astral Weeks. I was only introduced to it in my late teens or early 20s by the Waterboys. They do a cover of Sweet Thing from the Astral Weeks album on Fisherman's Blues. I've connected with music in a real strong, visceral way in my 30s and now 40s, but nothing really compares to the spell that a record or a song or an artist can have over you when you're 16, 17, and in your 20s. Astral Weeks itself is an incredible piece of music. The feel of continuity is so much of the piece. It's not intellectualized. I don't mean the way it appears, but when you listen to it, it feels very stream of consciousness, but also is recorded very quickly and spontaneously. It feels like the unvarnished version of an artist. So why would I want to listen to it as the last song before I died? For one thing, it's a great song. It's also the first piece of music that both my kids heard. When Hank, my eldest son, was born, there was some discussion. We were in the hospital, and I think we had brought a little speaker along with us because we knew we were going to be there for a few days. And we were in the days after you've had a kid where the baby is sleeping and waking, sleeping and waking, and all of a sudden you have walked through the doors that you can never go out of. You're in this momentary divide. On one side, you're childless. On the other side, you're a parent. So you're in that weird headspace, a fog where everything is new. You're in the presence of someone for whom everything is new. Nothing is familiar. Everything becomes weighted with importance. There was a brief discussion about how, if we put on some music, it will be the first that the baby hears. What is that going to be? I think my wife and I quickly decided that Astral Weeks was going to be the first piece of music. It's organic. It's nothing that Hank remembers, and I can't even imagine what your consciousness is like when it's your first time breathing outside the womb. It was much for us as it was for him. It was also an opportunity to put ourselves in that mindset, like, what is it to hear music for the first time? When our second kid was born, we were prepared. We were at the hospital with the speaker, with the phone, and we were both like, it should just be Astral Weeks. So both of them, their first piece of music, the first melodic sounds, was Astral Weeks. When I reflect on the last bit of music that I'd want to hear, I think Astral Weeks is that as well. I think it is appropriate for the first and last. Van was a big improviser. Astral Weeks is like 3 chords, the main verse part of it. When I write, I lock in, and melody is super important. I don't know that he writes his melodies each time. I think it's very free-flowing, particularly in the early days. The funny thing is, he totally disavowed what he had done with the album Astral Weeks and thought it was an uncommercial mess. He just wanted to make money and made Moondance next. They were only separated by a year, but sound so different. They were coming from a different mind, a different artist. But it was him just deciding he needed to make something commercial, and he did. Death is very common in the Decemberist songs. It's as common as it comes. The songs that don't touch on death are in the minority at this point. There's a lot of dying, drowning, murder, and also just dying. What Astral Weeks is about, what that means, I guess, is up for interpretation from anybody. It's astral, connected to the stars, which are infinite, but just for weeks, a known definitive amount of time. That reminds me of childbirth or the experience of having a kid, like what it takes to be a parent. It's the moment of being equally in love and feeling unmoored. I think weeks spent in that way are astral and how they present themselves. So stepping over into death is one of those crossings through doors that you'll never return from, venturing into the slipstream. That song could very well be about death as much as it is about whatever Van Morrison was thinking about in 1968. And that's it for my Q&A, Boulder Bookstore. Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting local bookstores and independent authors, and I hope you will check out my book, One Last Song. Thank you.